Hi everyone, my name is Cristy Davaloz and I'm 19 years old. I'm currently a pre-nursing student at the University of Arkansas in hopes of becoming a pediatric nurse one day. I'm from Plano, Texas, which is near Dallas where I've lived my entire life. The War Eagle Mill is located in Rogers, Arkansas next to War Eagle Creek. The piece of artwork I chose to research is called War Eagle Mill and it is located in Rogers, Arkansas. Unfortunately for the mill, it was destroyed many times due to things such as nature and war. As a result, there were many architects who built and rebuilt the War Eagle Mill a total of 4 times. First, Sylvanus Blackburn originally built the mill in 1832, followed by his son James Austin Cameron Blackburn and then Jewel Medlin in 1973. The War Eagle Mill is over 170 years old and is a beautiful piece of architecture that holds an abundant amount of history. In 1832, the first mill was built by Sylvanus Blackburn after him and his wife Catherine decided they wanted to plant corn in the Creek Valley. Eventually, their mill became quite popular and families from all over would come and have picnics while they waited for their grain to be milled. In 1848, bad weather flooded the Creek Valley and the War Eagle Mill was pushed into the river and demolished. When the weather returned back to normal, Blackburn rebuilt the mill and his business prospered more than ever. Unfortunately, in 1861, the Civil War broke out and Blackburn and his family had no other choice but to flee their home and move to Texas. While they were away, the Union Army began to use the mill to grind grain for food. Once they retreated to Pea Ridge, Arkansas, the Confederate soldiers began using the mill until their general ordered them to burn it down. In 1865, Sylvanus and Catherine returned to find their mill in shambles, and their son, James Austin Cameron Blackburn, rebuilt and advanced the mill for the 3rd time. Sylvanus' son became very successful, and it's significant that the lumber cut at the mill was used to build much of Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Old Main on the university campus. Eventually, James Austin Cameron sold the mill to the Kilgore family, who operated the mill until 1924 when it burned down for the 2nd time. At last, in 1973, Jewel Medlin purchased the property and found the blueprints from the 3rd mill and rebuilt it for the 4th time. Today, Marty and Elise Ronick own the War Eagle Mill, where they share the history of the mill and sell all natural products. The War Eagle Mill could be considered to have nationalistic value because it holds so much history. During the Civil War, the mill served as a shelter for both the Confederate and Union soldiers. It also made a breakthrough in agriculture for the residents of the small valley. The use of space in this piece of art is enclosed, and the scale of the mill is a medium-sized building that looks out to a creek. The mill is 3-dimensional. The building is solid and has volume. Also, the entire mill is painted the primary color red, with white trim along the windows and edges of the building. The intensity of the color of the mill is very bright. The shade of red that the mill is painted is not dull at all. The color red represents a feeling of warmth and happiness, which can relate to the townspeople because the mill helped them grow their crops, which brought them happiness. The last thing to consider is that the content of this piece of architecture would be considered naturalistic because it depicts a typical mill. The War Eagle Mill could fall under the category of Marxism in terms of methodologies of art history. Marx explored why the working class created art. A prime example of a proletariat would be Sylvanus Blackburn. Sylvanus and Catherine Blackburn were a pioneer couple that moved to the Creek Valley in Arkansas in hopes of a better life. Shortly after they built their mill, their business began to boom, but they were still considered working class. People who study Marxism often compare art to economic factors. This relates to Blackburn because the piece of art that he built was solely used for economic factors. Like any other businessman, Blackburn had to consider things like costs and materials in order to keep his business afloat. Marxists also studied patronage in relation to other factors, such as politics. Although the Blackburns did not receive financial help to build their mill, they did receive support from the townspeople. This support, along with promotion by word of mouth, ultimately helped their business grow and flourish. The War Eagle Mill would be categorized under the 19th century realism era. During this time period, England led the Industrial Revolution, which turned the economy around for industries and agriculture and helped the War Eagle Mill owners tremendously. At one point, 19th century architects began to adopt the use of steel and iron. In 1832, when Sylvanus Blackburn built the first mill, he realized he needed to provide easy access to the mill in order for it to become successful. His solution? He built a bridge over the creek connecting the mill to the mainland for his customers. This bridge was made from steel. Another thing to consider is that very large buildings were starting to be designed and built. Although the War Eagle Mill was no skyscraper, it was still a medium-sized building that a lot of work went into. Also, like Jean Francis Millais, the War Eagle Mill represented the transition between Romanticism and realism. There was once a romantic sense of oneness with nature, which the mill represented with its grain, corn, and lumber. Then it transitioned its focus to the hard physical labor of the mill workers who aren't wealthy by any means. Overall, the War Eagle Mill seems to fit the category of the 19th century realism most because of the time frame and influence that it had on it. The reason I chose this piece of architecture to research is because it has so much history and is responsible for many buildings in Fayetteville. I thought it was particularly interesting that the lumber from the mill was used to build Old Main on the University of Arkansas campus. Old Main is my favorite building at the campus, so I thought that it was cool that the War Eagle Mill had a connection to it. Overall, I'm glad I researched the War Eagle Mill because not only did it contribute to the architecture in my town, but it also contributed to the architecture at my school.